Do you agree with
My
all
pleasure.
this talk about the presidential elections being rigged in Iran?
Well, there's a saying that the proof of pudding is eating it. The burden of proof is on the shoulder of Mr. Mousavi and his allies to prove with substantial document, and they had, tons of independent observers at all the voting centers to document these alleged violations, to submit to the election commissions as the law requires. Unfortunately, 3 days later, Mr. Mousavi has not done that yet, and one wonders why. Because you cannot ask for re-elections based on unfounded allegations.
Well, let me ask you this, and some are asking why, yes, but he had the option to file a complaint, but there are rumors that he is under house arrest, that there are restrictions on cell phones, there's restrictions on internet. Did he really have the option to do that at this point?
Well, according to his latest communique, he went to the Interior Ministry today, and he also submitted a complaint to the Council of Guardians asking for basically new elections. So he's had freedom of movement, and he's had plenty of time to put together a dossier citing specific violations. And as I said, there were some 3,000 independent monitors by the 4 candidates, in addition to 2 sets of official monitors overseeing the elections. So Mr. Mousavi has the burden, and he has not carried that burden. And add to that the fact that he was so overconfident about being the clear winner 1 hour after the voting centers had closed down and the vote count hadn't even begun yet, that he pretty much psychologically boxed himself into this winner syndrome that he hasn't been able to get out of that, and we've seen some of the unfortunate results of that.
There are people who say that the President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad did not win by such a huge margin, that he did not get 63% of the vote. Do you believe that he did?
Well, look, since the start of the Islamic Revolution 30 years ago, we've had allegations of voting irregularities at almost every election, including during the era of reformist former President Mr. Khatami. And I incidentally worked with Mr. Khatami on the program of dialogue among civilizations. And there's nothing new about that. However, we've never had this kind of blanket rejection of the entire process. And that reminds me of what Mr. Mousavi himself said back in 1986, when he expressed surprise that some people were calling the elections back then as rigged. And he said that, look, with so many monitors, how is it possible to cheat? And the same question should come and haunt him today.
Mr. Afrasiabi, I want to get a couple things in here to make sure that we hear from you. Do you support the President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad?
On balance, I do, and I think that he's done tremendous job in terms of strengthening Iran. Iran today is a regional powerhouse with considerable international influence. He has defended Iran's nuclear rights, and he has also made conciliatory gestures toward the United States and has offered to enter into dialogue with the US.
What do you think of Mr.
Overall,
Mousavi?
I think it has had sound. Well, Mr. Mousavi, during the 21 years that the Iranian rulers were building Iran into the powerhouse that it is today, he was concentrating on his artistic skills. And overnight, he was parachuted to the forefront of the reformist movement that he had no connection, organic connection to whatsoever. And now he is doing serious harm to the reformist movement by his, exaggerated claims and so forth without backing them with empirical evidence.
Do you think that the results here will be contested?
Well, Mr. Mousavi and to a lesser extent Mr. Karoubi have contested them, but as I said, there are election laws that need to be followed, and the irregularity, the abnormality of Mr. Mousavi's action consists of the fact that he did not follow those rules. He did not submit a formal complaint to the Interior Ministry saying that in such and such places there were such abnormalities and irregularities. He should have done that. He did not follow the rules. Mr. Mousavi, let me add that, he's an amateur when it comes to contested elections. He was never elected to those positions as prime minister. This is his first time running, and obviously he's an amateur at this, because, he boxed himself in this winner syndrome and ran with it, basically.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I really want to get as many topics as possible here. When I said, do you think it'll be contested, what I really meant is, do you think it'll be overturned, and should it be overturned?
Well, in the absence of viable evidence proving Mr. Musavi's blanket rejection and allegations, I highly doubt that. And so, the burden is on Mr. Musavi, and he has not proffered any substantial evidence.